Good morning. Good morning. Sorry, I just had a little bit of a technical issue. And of course, I tend to panic when I see that something is not working. But luckily, it was nothing major, and I was able to go live on StreamYard. So for those of you who might be watching me for the first time, I am Svieta Melchuk. I'm a professional home stager and property styler and Airbnb operator and host and house flipper with my husband. And we've been doing that for quite a long number of years. I've been actually staging homes in Montreal, Canada since 2006. And that sounds really scary because it's been 15 years. So I've taken a little bit of a break in the last couple of weeks, and I must say that I did miss you, ladies, and but it also felt good to be away. For those of you who are joining me this morning, as usual, please say hi, put something in the chat, tell me who you are. Now, if you give the permission to StreamYard to use your Facebook profile, which is right at the top, then I'll be able to see your names right away. And if you don't, I'll only be able to see your names once I go back into the actual Facebook group, okay? But then you just have to say hi and tell me who you are, give me your name in the chat box. And of course, I'm seeing that Debbie is on. Good morning, Debbie. I missed you too, and thank you for your support. I am feeling a little bit better. For those of you who don't know, I have a condition which is called mal de débarquement syndrome, and it's kind of a vertigo, but it's only provoked by specific types of long travel. And I knew that I had it from cruise ships, but this time we drove for a very long time. We drove for 10 hours and then 6 hours and then another 12 hours. And I didn't realize that all of a sudden this condition was brought on by the traveling even in the car. So yeah, I'm feeling a little woozy. I'm feeling a little dizzy. And especially if I'm staring at the screen, I feel it more. But, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. And Debbie, hopefully the information that I was able to provide is going to help you out, and you can research that, because I know that it's totally debilitating to be suffering from dizziness and vertigo continuously. So for those of you who are coming on, please say hello, tell me who you are, tell me where you're watching from. And before we actually go into today's topic, which is about home offices, and as usual, I start by thinking that maybe I won't have enough things to say. And then I have this, this whole sheet of paper written with all my notes and everything that I want to cover. So I'll probably will have a lot of things to say. Hopefully you'll find information interesting and useful. But before I go into this, I really cannot help saying something which has totally nothing to do with home staging, but it's, I'm not a political person in general, and I stay away. Hi, Gail. I stay away from discussing politics in general. But this time I am just so totally horrified and appalled by what's happening in Afghanistan. And I feel so horribly sad for all of the people there, particularly women and girls who will be obviously becoming, slaves again, and their rights to education and women's rights, everything is going to go down the drain. And all of the people who have helped the missions, the Canadians, the Americans, and who are being left behind, which I'm just totally like, I want to cry. I want to be able to do something. And I encourage all of you, to be able to do whatever you can to voice your concerns to your government. And I'm just, I don't pray, but I really hope that somehow things are going to get better, and hopefully, some government somewhere will do what's necessary to help those poor people, and bring some kind of a normal civilized society eventually to Afghanistan. So I really needed to say that. And good morning to Elizabeth. Hi, ladies. Love you. And, we're a women's group. And I think we just, those particular moments, we really recognize the unfortunate blessing and luck that we all have in living in a countries that maybe not perfect, but countries where we're allowed to go to school. We have the opportunities. We can choose careers. We can walk around the way, looking the way we want. And basically we can lead lives that are normal, that are good. So, everything else kind of honestly seems to pale in comparison and doesn't seem to be so important. So I'm kind of a little bit upset this morning, to be honest. I feel like talking about anything that's a little bit superficial, like how to decorate your home office. And it's very superficial compared to the real lives of real people who try to get on the planes. I don't know if you saw that. People who are literally hanging off the wheels of the planes, taking off and falling from the sky. They're that desperate. So I can't talk about it anymore because I'm going to cry. Okay, so let's go and talk about our little futile and superficial, but still, maybe necessary. And if it can make you feel better and look better, well, maybe I'll find some some satisfaction in knowing that I've made your day a little bit better today. So one other thing I want to say is that, how we tend to, I have an office. I'm very lucky. I actually have a full room in my house, which is dedicated to my office space. And it's not perfect, but I did make it into something that is pleasant. But thinking about what I was going to say today and doing a little bit of research and putting my thoughts together made me realize that I'm very far from what I'm going to be talking to you about. Some things I've implemented quite well. For example, the wallpaper behind me, and I also have a nice storage space, which is very nice. And I purchased them at IKEA, and everything is nice and neat and put away. But in terms of decorating, I probably have not finished the way I would like to decorate. So there's certain things that I realized that I could do, and I would be able to add to my own office space to make it a little bit more homey and a little bit more warm up the space, to be honest, because right now it's very functional, but it's lacking in the little decorative touches. So hopefully this live will be good for me as well, and I will actually go and I'll tell you what the kind of just little things that I could do to my own office to make it feel a little bit more the way I would like it to feel. So thank you, the Facebook user, for saying I'm reading the comments that you said that I was eloquent and passionate. Thank you. I don't know who you are though. So if you give me your name, just put your name in the chat box so I can thank you personally. So I've put it together for the office because we all have different situations, and whatever space you need to allocate to your office in your home, this is where I would definitely start, is really to think about, be creative, and look for solutions that might not be obvious. So some people are luckier than others. As I said, it's just my husband and I who live in the house now. So I was able to take one of my rooms and turn it into an office space. Now, some other people, it might not be a possibility. You might not have a whole room that you can dedicate to your office space. But in that case, you need to think through about where could you have a dedicated office space. It might not be the whole room. For example, some unusual places you might want to look at is an attic, even maybe if you have a wide hallway, if you have a nook somewhere where you can take, Elizabeth, thank you. And even closets, okay? I've seen people making a really cute, small office spaces inside a closet. So if you take the doors down, of course. So that could be one of the potential. And also don't ignore the spaces that you might have under staircases. So some people have this, kind of under the staircase, you don't really know what the space is, and it might not be really useful. And you might put a little table there or maybe plant, but maybe that could be a space that could be turned into an office space. And I really think that all of us, whatever work you do, whether you do full-time work there or part-time, but to me, I think it's super important that you kind of carve out whatever space you have and make it your own, and make it very clear to the other members of your family, if you have members of your family who live with you, that it is something that is not to be shared or not to be intruded upon. Okay, to me, it's super important. I must say it's a pet peeve of mine, because I don't like to be disturbed when I have a creative juices flowing, if I'm writing some content or I'm learning something, or I am, thinking about how to make my business better, or what kind of things I can bring you guys, coming up with the topics to talk about. It's it really annoys me when somebody just walks in and starts talking to me. Usually it's my husband. So I would start by identifying whatever potential space you could carve out for yourself. Then you have to define that space. So in order to define that space, you have to think, how much of that space can you use to create a home office? And then the best thing to do, of course, is to start take measurements. You can just make a sketch by hand. You can take a piece of paper and the measuring tape, and then really important to measure all of the space, including the vertical, to see how much of that actual space can be used, because then you'll know what kind of furniture you can put in there. And of course, the furniture has to be proportional in size to the space that you've got. And maybe if you don't have a lot of space, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. So once you've defined that space and you've measured your space, then I want you to create a little floor plan. And it doesn't have to be something very elaborate. There are some free apps that exist out there that are quite simple, such as Room Styler and Floor Plan, that allow you to do that. But if not, you can just sketch it by hand as well. But that will allow you kind of to play around and see the potential dimensions of the things that are the most important to you. So what I want, I should have said it at the beginning, but I got distracted by the Afghanistan situation. But the idea today is really to give you some ideas, and I want you to walk away thinking a little differently. And if you don't have an office space that you like, but you need one in your house, then I want you to have some real tangible action steps that you'll know how to take to go and fix it, to make it better, or maybe change the area. And I want you to be able not only to create that little space, but also style it on a budget, because that's what I do. Like, I don't like to spend a lot of money on things, and I always try to find simple and creative solutions to make things look nice and something that's going to bring you joy. And like I said, on my office now, I realize that it could use some touches as well. So once you create your floor plan, there's a couple of important things I want you to think about. You really need to start with your must-haves. So what are the priorities for that space for you? What are you using it for? Like, I need a big desk, okay? Because not that I have a lot of stuff on my desk, but I have my computer. I have also a separate screen, which I usually use, a larger screen. I have separate keyboard, and I have papers. I'm not extremely super organized in terms of my paperwork, so I try to keep the minimum of papers required on my desk. And quite occasionally, quite often, I should say, maybe once a week, I go through the papers, and I'm going to talk about it, and I kind of declutter, and I move away the things that I'm not working on immediately right now. So my cleaning lady would probably not agree because she always moves my papers around my desk, but she doesn't dare to move them around too much because she knows that I don't like that. So what are the must-haves that you need for your working space? So of course, everybody needs a desk. Now, do you need a big desk? Do you need are you okay with a smaller desk? Do you need the drawers on your with your desk? Or you can, like whatever your requirements are, it's important. You also need a chair. Now, chairs are, of course, important depending on how much time you spend there. So you can go, for the little cheap IKEA chair, or you might want to invest in, depending if you have back problems, if you sit a lot, you might want to invest more to buy a nice chair. Lighting, okay, a lot of times people don't pay attention to lighting, but I think it's one of the most important things. And you have different types of lighting, of course. So you have natural lighting from the windows, you have overhead lighting, and then you have either a table lamp or a stand-up lamp that is going to give you enough light. I also have something called ring lights, which you don't see, but it's behind my laptop, and it's a special type of light when you do lives, when you talk on video, you do any kind of video, it's recommended to have that ring lighting, so it lights up my face and it makes me look better. So I bought that. It was not very expensive. It was under $50. The other thing I want, really, really important, I want you to think about, it's how you're going to position your desk. Now, some people, you might not have a lot of options in terms of positioning, but it's something that you should think about, because the best positioning is, of course, facing a window. So for several reasons. One is because you might enjoy the view and you'll get the direct natural light on you. And especially if you are in Zoom meetings or if you're doing live videos like me, then having the natural light lighting up your face is the best possible way. Now, in my case, it was not quite possible to do that. My office is arranged a little differently. So I do have a very big window. It's actually a big patio door, but instead of being, across from me, it's actually sideways. So it's not ideal. And that's why you might maybe see that this side of my face might be lit up better than this side. Okay, so maybe one day I'll actually try to reposition, but now I have those humongous bookshelves, storage shelves that are on the other wall, so that would be kind of a difficult thing to do. So the desk positioning is super important, especially if you do lives, as I said. Now, if you do lives or if you do Zooms, the other thing I want you to consider about the desk is what's behind you. And again, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, because I know with the pandemic, everybody started working from home and people were kind of trying to do the best they could, and they didn't have necessarily all of the things in place. But I think you still need to kind of look professional and act professional. So what's behind you is very important. Today, there's few different solutions. Now, my solution was just to put some wallpaper up. It was just one wall. And I think it really works well. It's very neutral, it's understated, but it's like a good background. It doesn't distract, hopefully, you guys from watching me. And by the way, if you have any kind of comments, just keep putting them in the chat, because I am reading them as I'm talking, and I will be responding to them. Now, some people don't necessarily want to invest. You could also, I help people with their backgrounds if they do a lot of Zoom meetings, and if they want to have a real background like me, then there's certain things that could be done. It could be paint, it could be wallpaper, it could be some nice bookshelves which are nicely styled. It could just be an artwork as well. So, but some people choose a different solution, which I have never tried because my laptop is actually too old to allow for that. But there is a lot of digital backgrounds which are now available from Zoom, or literally from any kind of source, even maybe places like Wayfair or furniture stores, and basically it's just a file that you can download. And I'm not exactly sure how it works, to be honest, because I'm not able to do it for myself with this this laptop I'm using. But I see people do that all the time, and you can choose. You can just Google virtual background, office background, and you can literally show like you're on the beach, which I don't necessarily think is something that people should be doing. Or you could choose like a nice living room, or a kitchen, or an office setup. So there is a lot of, and they're free, by the way, so you don't even have to pay for them. So you could choose a virtual background if you can't do anything else. So if your desk is set up in a way that it's like, I don't know, it's your kitchen in the back, or it's your kids' playroom, obviously the best choice for you would be to find a virtual background and download it. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention so you remember to do that. So once you thought about your desk, your chair, your lighting, you also have to think about your storage. Okay, what are you going to keep in that space, and how much storage do you actually need? Now, what you can do is, if you have a small space, I always recommend going vertical, which means don't forget that you can use all of the walls that you've got, and you can either create shelving or some kind of a storage system. Like I have the one I bought from IKEA, which goes pretty high, and it gives me a lot of storage. So don't be afraid of going vertically to use all of the space that you have. Okay, that's super important. And then the last thing is obviously the aesthetic aspect. So right now we talked about the functionality, but all of the important things that you need to make your office functional. But the last touch is a decorative touch, is the accessories, is the aesthetics, is to make your space pleasing and the way you want it to reflect your personality. So some of the things that you can start thinking about is, for example, plants. And that's one thing which I realized that I'm lacking. So I do have, here, here, sorry. So if you can see, there is a plant here. Unfortunately, it's not a real plant. Okay, it's a very nice, actually, it's a very nice artificial plant, high quality, which I used for my staging jobs. But I just realized now that I do have a couple of places in my office where I would like to add some greenery. So that will be my number one add-on, which is not very expensive, and I think it will make my office look a lot better. So I'm going to look for that. Then you can also add some artwork. It's very personal. You can also add photos. If you're going to add photos of your family and make like a gallery, what I would do is not put them on the wall that everybody can see, but you can use any other walls in your office, unless you don't do any Zooms, of course, so then you can put them wherever you want. But again, to keep like kind of our professional life separate from our personal life, if you're going to put a wall of photos, I would put them on a different wall. And that's also something that made me realize that maybe this would be a perfect space for me, for my office, that I could add is a few photos that are personal to me, like of our kids, or maybe our trip memories that make me happy. So that's, mental note, another note that I took for myself. And you also can take any kind of objects that you already have that you meaningful to you. Like I like candles, so I actually have a set of 3 candles sitting in my office just for decorative purposes. You can take any kind of objects of different, good morning, Catherine, nice to see you, any kind of objects that are meaningful to you. So it could be, little vases, could be maybe some pretty books, it could be photographs, framed photos of your family, or maybe your trips, or whatever you like. And recently I saw someone who had quite a clever idea. I'm kind of jumping to decorating already, but I just don't want to forget it. So there was a very clever idea with this woman did is that she took some baskets, some woven baskets, and she put them on a wall as a decorative wall. So somebody else can do it with hats. I personally, it's not my kind of thing, but it can look really, really nice. So it's really inexpensive if you like different size baskets and shapes, and you can just obviously always do it in 305, but you can set them up on a wall and it can become a very nice and inexpensive decoration. So we've talked about the background for Zoom. So I also always prone to use what you have. So before you go out and spend money and buy more furniture, more things, again, try to be clever and maybe walk around the house and see if you already have something that you could reuse, whether it's a chair or maybe it's a desk or something that you can use for shelving, for storage, wherever you have, and collect whatever objects, decorative objects that you like, that are meaningful to you. Now, of course, don't put like hundreds of them in your office, but just a few, enough for you to look around your office when you're working and be reminded of all the good things that are important to you. So again, I'll share something with you. So what I have is I love to travel, and that's the thing that motivates me a lot and makes me happy. So on Etsy, I purchased a big, pretty map of the world, and I have it framed. And it's those maps of the world that come with little pins. And every time we travel, my husband and I put a new pin to the place where we've been. And it sits right across from my desk. So I see it every time I look up. And that makes me happy because it gives me motivation, and it brings, memories of our past trips. And hopefully, thinking about where my next trip is going to be, as long as I don't take too long, right, to think about where my next trip will be instead of working. So use what you have, collect the things that are really important to you, and just bring them into your office space. One other thing, I talked about the natural light and your windows. If you are in a space which has a window, then definitely think about window coverings, and you can really soften the look of your office by putting some inexpensive curtains. I use see-through curtains because my patio door gives out on the street, so people who walk by can kind of see inside my office. So my curtains are see-through, so it still gives me the light, but without necessarily people seeing what I do. So it kind of gives me privacy, and if I want, I can open them at any time. So window coverings are super important. Now, another easy and inexpensive way to change your office space is, of course, paint. And you know me by now, and I always talk about the paint. And I do think that by choosing some paint that makes you, the paint color or wallpaper that makes you happy, it can be either the whole room, or if you don't want to do the whole room, you can just do one wall, and that just brings completely different look to your space for a very little money. You could also go with something that's like a bright color and put it somewhere else. Like if you're adventurous, maybe your office chair could be orange or blue or green, whatever color you like. Some people even choose desks of a very unusual color, or your storage unit could be different colors. So whatever makes you happy, because in this particular case, we're not talking about home staging for sale. We're talking more about staging to live. So something that you're going to be keeping for a while for yourself to make yourself happy. So we talked about the lighting already. So I just want to remind you that, that's something that you really do need to consider. And if your office is a part of another room, so if you don't have a special closed-in room, one very, very important element is how are you going to mentally and visually separate that office space from the rest of the room. So there's a couple of things that you could do. Is how do you have to, like as I said before, you have to measure your space, and so in your head or on your sketch you're going to define that space, so you'll know how many square feet you have. And then my suggestion would be, if at all possible, is somehow to limit that space, make clear to yourself and to everybody around you that this is a separate area and this is a working area. So one of the things that you could do is put an area rug, and that right away brings a lot of warmth into the office, and it also helps limit the office area. The only concern I have with the area rug is that if you have a chair like me, that slides in and out, obviously if you put it on the rug, it's not going to work. So the solution for that, what I have is, I bought at IKEA this plastic, they sell this special like plastic pad, and that sits under my chair so it doesn't ruin my wood floors, and it still allows my chair to slide in and out, so it's easy for me to move the chair out and get up and walk around my desk when I need to. So another thing that I am considering doing, based on all the information that I'm giving you, but it also made me think about the things that I'm lacking in my own office. I think for the winter time I will add a small area rug which will go in front of my desk, or a little bit under my desk, but it will not be in a space where my chair is, obviously. Otherwise, I won't be able to move my chair. But I love decorating with area rugs because it just can make such a huge difference. You can bring color to the space just by putting in an expensive area rug. So just keep that in mind. The other things that you could do to limit your space is things like bookshelves. So some people are very clever and they buy bookshelves, IKEA bookshelves, the ones that are like just a frame and you put baskets inside of them. I forgot what the name of the model is, but you could very well use that for two purposes. So you can limit your office space by putting those bookshelves, like a separator, divider between, the rest of the room and the office space. And then you can also use it for storage, and you can even put plants on top of it. So that would be like three things that three functions that you could use. So that would work really well. And if not, I've seen also people buying room dividers, those things that stand up and you can kind of move them in and out as needed. And cleverly, some of them are really not very expensive. I've looked them up on Amazon before, and usually maybe about $100 you can get something that's very decent looking, and you can use that as well to delimit your space. Or I just thought of something else. If you like plants, and if your area where you are is bright enough, you could also create a visual divider, a visual separator by using a couple of big plants. That would look great. Now, I think it's Elizabeth. She said she likes my wallpaper. It is on one wall or all four. No, my wallpaper is only on one wall for different reasons, because the rest of my office is painted a very light gray color. And I think it would have been a little too much to have the whole room wallpapered. And it's also saved us money and time. So I needed it specifically for the background of my Zooms and my lives. And so honestly, this wallpaper was bought at Home Depot online a couple of years ago, and it cost me, I think, $80. So that was I think it was very, very, very reasonable. Thank you. I already mentioned about going vertical, so I will just remind you of doing that. If you have a small space, just keep thinking about all of the wall space that you can use. And adding plants, I think it's a great idea. And as I mentioned before, this is what I'm planning to do. And one last thing, and it's easy to say, I know it's easy to say, it's not that easy to do, is I think one of the tricks of having a nicely styled and pleasant office is to keep it decluttered. And I try to follow my own advice. And as you probably know, I don't like clutter. I'm very minimalist in everything I do, but I know with paperwork and we're working on different files and we have our printer and we have paper and, you know, things, and we have bills, and things just tend to accumulate. So I try as much as I can. I have a pretty big desk, and as I mentioned before, I do make a point. I'm the only person responsible for this room. Nobody else walks in here, so I can't claim that somebody else, you know, threw papers around. So I try to keep it organized as much as I can, and about once a week, I go through the stack of papers on my desk, and whatever I'm not working on at this particular time, I put it into a cubby hole, like into my storage. So I really strongly encourage you to do the same, and do not let papers accumulate. Like, for example, one of my rules is sometimes, you know, I'm in the middle of thinking of something or doing something, and I'm going through the papers, and whatever I don't need at this particular moment, I put it on the floor. But then it really bugs me, right? And I'm like, okay, no, before I finish my working day or whatever I'm doing, I will not keep the papers on the floor. So I pick up the whatever stuff is on the floor, and I immediately decide where it's gonna go. So that really helps. And you know, especially if I use my Roomba afterwards, well, I know that I don't have any things lying around on the floor that it could get itself tangled in. So that was really my topics for today. If you have any questions, now is the time to put them in the chat. Give me any comments that you want. There's a couple of things I would like to ask you. So I will post it in the group. If you want to put up some pictures of your own home office space, if it's big or it's small, if it's a separate room or it's just a part of another room, I'd really, really love to see them. And maybe I'll give you a couple of tips and ideas on how to make it a little bit better if you want me to. And the other thing I want to mention is that I do help people not just with their home offices, but any kind of rooms, to give you tips and ideas on how to style them. And so if you do need help with a particular area of your house, I do have a special promotion that I kind of forgot about, but I decided to bring it back this week. And I will give more information on it. I will post a couple of times about it, but it's a staging to live consultation, and it's something that's very short and very oriented. So it's basically will work on one room, 1 hour, $97. So I think it's the best way to go about it. And you'll walk out of that consultation with very specific and action-oriented ideas on what you could do to implement to resolve whatever challenge you might have, or if something you don't like in that room but you're not sure what, and maybe it's just as simple as repositioning some furniture and adding a couple of things or removing a couple of things. So if you have any questions, or if it's something that might be of interest to you, please comment below or contact me by messenger, and just book a little call with me and we'll discuss it. So again, it's a staging to live consultation. So this is not for selling. This is specifically for home stayers, and it's 1 room, 1 hour, $97. So that's it for me for today. I'm very happy to be back. Thank you for being here with me this morning. Whoever is not catching it live, please type #replay so I know you've watched. And if you think of any other questions that come to mind later on, don't be shy, just pop them in the chat and I'll try to answer all of them, okay? So ladies, thank you for being with me as usual. Nice to hear you, to see you, to read you. And I'll see you later. See you soon. Bye-bye.